It is Aaron Sands, and welcome to King Talk Season 3. Let's get smarter.
What's up, everybody? This is your boy Ken, aka Mr. Gentleman, your host of Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast and 1/4 of the Premier Boy Podcast. And you are now listening to my brother, Aaron, King Talk Sands Show, King Talk with Aaron Sands.
The views expressed in this episode of King Talk are those of Aaron Sands and not those of the Premier Boys brand, YPG Entertainment, or our respective streaming affiliates. King Talk. Yeah, that's me. What up, everybody? It's your man's Aaron Sands, and we are back with another one. You already know what it is. If it's Fridays, then it's King Talk. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We got a major episode coming up right here. First things first, I want to give a shout out to all my listeners who've been listening vigilantly to the last few episodes. Because of you, I am back on the number one chart, the number one spot on the charts at Good Pods for entertainment news, indie and non-indie, and I'm also number one on all news on the Good Pods chart. So I want to give a shout out to all the people who's been listening, all the fans that's been listening, been checking out this content. I know you've been liking it, and I appreciate all you guys been doing. It's real simple. Listen to the episodes. If you like what you hear, if you feel like it's a W, give it a like. If you feel like the episode's an L, let me know in the comments why you think it's an L. And every week, we're going to keep doing this. New content, new episodes of King Talk. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're getting halfway into the season, and it's looking real good right now. And honestly, only people I could think is you, the fans. The fans that listen to this every week. Much love to y'all. I definitely appreciate the support, but we're gonna get right into it. So on my stories on IG, y'all might have seen it, y'all might have not seen it. This episode is listener's choice. I gave 4 options on my IG stories, which you can find on Aaron Sands Premier, link in the description. Basically, 4 choices was Kyrie Irving and Ant versus the NBA and the Jewish media, Drake and 21 Savage, new album out. I was going to give a review on that. Elon Musk's Twitter takeover, or Storytime with Aaron Sands. And by a unanimous vote, everybody wanted me to talk about the Kyrie Irving situation, cancel culture playoffs. So you know what? We're going to get right into it. Let me get right into it with that topic. That's what this episode is going to be about. And once again, this episode is about Kyrie Irving because of you, the fans. But I'm going to give my honest, raw opinion on this whole situation. Before I get into it, I was thinking about the whole situation with Kyrie, and a lot of it came down to this, right? You know, cancel culture is a motherfucker. Let me tell you about this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I always tell people, there are 2 groups right now. I would say 2.5 maybe. That are pretty much protected no matter what. These groups literally could pull a Trump. You know what I'm saying? Shoot somebody in the middle of the Times Square, right in the face, in the middle of Times Square, and they will be protected and nothing will really happen like that. You know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, you and I, if I steal a Big Mac and cheese, I'm going to jail. Like, it's a wrap. Like, that's it. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to jail for 5 years, stealing a Big Mac and cheese. So, you know, I want to preface this episode with that solid point. And I'm going to open this episode talking about the situation with Kyrie Irving, the Nets, and basically the Anti-Defamation League, but also, you know, Jewish media as a whole. I ain't scared to say it. If you didn't cancel me by now, you probably ain't gonna cancel me. So here we are. right? Getting into it, we're gonna get into the situation with Kyrie Irving and how is he going to bounce back from this and everything like that. But for those who don't know, apparently Amazon drops a movie called Hebrews to Negroes. Wake Up Black America. And basically what's happening there, the movie, according to the Amazon Prime description, goes a little something like this. Quote, the movie Hebrews to Negroes, Wake Up Black America uncovers the true identity of the children of Israel by proving the true ethnicity of Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob, the sons of Ham, Shem, and Japhet. Find out what Islam, Judaism, and Christianity has covered up for centuries in regards to the true biblical identity of the so-called Negro in this movie packed with tons of research. So basically, this movie drops on Amazon Prime, right? Kyrie Irving, who already has his own conspiracy theories himself, talking about flat Earth and everything like that. He took to Twitter and then posted the link to the film. Now keep in mind, you know what I'm saying? I didn't see, from what I've seen, I could be wrong, I didn't see him say anything about the film. I didn't see him give his critique. All I seen him do was share the link to a film that talks about the true identity of the children of Israel, according to Amazon Prime, right? And as soon as that happened, you know, news reports went crazy. People were calling Kyrie anti-Semitic. He said, you know, he's talking about spreading fake news. You know, there's really dogging him out about, you know, about sharing the link to the movie, you know? So around this time, you know, there's a lot of backlash going on. You're hot off the whole Kanye situation, you know what I'm saying? Like with him coming out and saying quote unquote anti-Semitic, speaking on anti-Semitic language, even though, as we discussed in a previous King Talk episode, he wasn't saying nothing out of pocket, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, there was the Anti-Defamation League was already on his heels about that. And then when this happened, it was like, okay, this is collateral. At this point, it's like collateral damage. So there's a whole lot of backlash going on with this at this time. Mind you, Kyrie's still playing for the Brooklyn Nets, who are outside of KD, rather trash right now. You know what I'm saying? There's a whole lot of backlash from that. He's still playing. And then next thing you know, he comes out and he apologizes, you know, to the Anti-Defamation League about, you know, him sharing a link and everything like that. Not only he apologizes, he then sends a $500,000 donation to the Anti-Defamation League, only for them to crumble up the paper and be like, nah, bro, we want more than that. We tired of y'all shit. We tired of y'all thinking y'all big steppers and, you know, saying what y'all want. You gonna have to get spanked. You know what I'm saying? And that spanking came in the form of the Nets suspending Kyrie for at least 5 games until he completes the following task. And I'm going to pull it up now. Pull up the tweet now. And this is according to Sheriff Charnia from CBS. I think not from CBS, ESPN. My bad. The following are the requirements that Kyrie Irving must fulfill in order to get reinstated by the team. Number 1, apologize and condemn the film he promoted, which, to be fair, he already did and paid a fee. So it's like, and they didn't accept it. So it's like, why are you gonna keep apologizing? What are you, Bret Hart? Like, come on now. Number 2, make a $500,000 donation to anti-hate causes. Now, he already made a $500,000 donation to the Anti-Defamation League, which at that point already got dismissed. They were like, they were not taking it. but they wanted to make a $500,000 donation to anti-hate causes. All right, what else? Then he got to complete sensitivity training. Then he got to complete anti-Semitism training. Might have butchered it. Anti-Semitism training. Sorry about that. Then he must meet with the ADL and Jewish leaders. And then after that, he has to meet with Timon and Joe Tsai to demonstrate an understanding of the whole situation. At this point, you just want to emasculate the man, in front of the whole league. So far, as the last game they played, the Nets played, Kyrie Irving is not playing. There's been fake reports he hasn't played. There's some reports where they're saying that he might retire, and even though those were found to be fake news, at the same time, it's really not that far-fetched from the imagination. You know what I'm saying? Like, for me personally, if I'm looking at this, right, I'm like, wait a minute. I already apologized. I already gave a lot of money to this group for this apology for me just sharing a link. I didn't give my thoughts. He didn't give his thoughts on the topic. He didn't give his views on the topic. He just simply shared a link, and that solely alone got him to where he was at this point. Right? So, knowing that, I got a few points I want to touch on before, I give my penultimate comments on this topic. First, I want to touch on the film Hebrews to Negroes, right? Now, I'm keeping it a buck. I did not see the movie, right? I don't got Amazon Prime like that. So, you know what I'm saying? When you got Netflix, Hulu, Disney, and all of that, you can't really, you know what I'm saying? Like, why would you need Amazon Prime? For real. But basically, from what I've been seeing, what I've been hearing from like other people who actually watched the movie, they're stating that there's nothing anti-Semitic about the movie. They just talk about how, the original Jews were dark skinned. They were black, and they were also saying that they also included that the Black Israelite community are the truest descendants of biblical Israelites, which is something that you hear a lot. Like, think about it like this: if you're ever in New York, especially if you were in New York during like the 90s to like maybe 2011, right? I'm from Brooklyn, right? And basically, you see these guys on like Livingston Avenue. If you know, you know. Or you might see them on 42nd Street. Or you might see them on 125th. Or you might see them on Fordham Road. Not the Spanish side of Fordham Road, but the African side of Fordham Road. Or you might see them on Fulton Street. But you see the Israelites on the street preaching the word. And they're like in groups. They're like maybe groups of like 7, 8. You know what I'm saying? And they're out here, you know what I'm saying? They're out here pushing their word. So one funny thing, it's not really funny, but it's kind of crazy. One crazy video that I seen a while back was when the Israelites encountered the Hasidic Jews. And if you know the Hasidic Jews, they pretty much run Williamsburg, Borough Park. In a sense, they kind of run the cops, to be honest with you, because during COVID, when everybody was locked down, Hasidic Jews was running around Williamsburg, throwing whole parties with no mask. Parties are like upwards of 150, 200 people. No mask on. Cops didn't do shit. Not even a little bit of shit. They didn't do nothing. You know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, I have 5 people in the house, and cops want to knock down my door talking about is anybody in there vaccinated. So you can see the disparity on that. But getting back into it, in this video, the Israelites broke down how black people were the original biblical Israelites. And they had the proof, they had the facts, and they had the receipts. The Hasidic Jews in that conversation had nothing for them. Nothing. And they just kept it moving. And I'm like, this is crazy. So I did my own research. And a lot of the research that I came across, from other parties match up to where the movie is, in a sense. Not in 100% sense, but is enough to be like, all right, you know what? That's it. This makes sense. I can see why this is reasonable. You know what I'm saying? So looking at that type of situation, I'm like, I'm understanding, why, for the most part, people are saying it's anti-Semitic, because you also got to consider something like this too. And this kind of goes back to the Kanye West situation. The Jewish community now owns a lot of the media, owns a lot what we see on TV, on radio, on our streaming sites. You know what I'm saying? And that includes Amazon Prime to an extent. And the situation with that is, when you own the media, you could pretty much control the narrative. You control how things are portrayed, how things are said, what is being said. You understand? So, having said that, if people are if you have people producers and directors trying to push out movies that may release something that might be, rather unsavory to that community, they're going to jump out the window and use their media tools to sit there and say, oh, this is anti-Semitic, this is bogus, that's, even though there's so much evidence saying otherwise. But because they own the space to put content out, they could, manipulate the situation. So, yeah, you have a lot of people saying, you have a lot of outlets saying, oh, this is anti-Semitic, and that tends to catch on, especially in a place where people are already, where the ADL is already at a strong, in a strong space. You understand? So you can see the backlash that comes within that. You understand? You really can see how the backlash can be made, how that can be placed when it comes down to the Jewish community, especially when you own a good chunk of media in America, especially, and around the world. So, that's something to really look into. That's a big thing to think about when you're thinking about the Kyrie Irving situation and the Kanye West situation, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago. Speaking of that, the backlash from Kyrie's situation from the ADL could be directly correlated to not only the cancellation of Ye, but also the cancellation and uncancellation of Nick Cannon. Because if you remember that episode of Cannon's Class, Nick Cannon was saying the same thing. He was saying the same things. He brought a guest on to discuss those topics, and next thing you know, he ended up getting canceled. Wild 'N Out stopped showing on VH1 and MTV. I think he got took off America's Got Talent. Like, a lot of the gigs that he had, he ended up losing behind, what was said on that episode. And then he had to sit there and get Jewish leaders on his show and then backtrack on that whole episode. I'm telling you right now, while I'm mentioning this, I'm not backtracking shit I'm saying in this episode. So if they're saying that they're saying they're trying to get me up out of here, get me off the streams behind this, hey, we gonna go to another avenue. You know what I'm saying? Because there's no way. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna sit there and go, oh, I'm sorry. No, because at a certain point, we also have to speak up on our history too. But we'll get to that in a minute. All of this can be correlated. So basically, Nick Cannon had to apologize on his platform to the Jewish community, and then I think had to make some donation. And then next thing you know, Wild 'N Out came back on with a new season, things like that. But he had to sit there and bend the knee. You know what I'm saying? He had to kiss the ring real quick. Same thing with Ye. He had to kiss the ring real quick. Because when he was speaking his truth, next thing you know, not speaking his truth. We apologize. Speaking the truth. You know what I'm saying? Next thing you know, he's losing endorsements left and right. We literally spoke about this about 2 episodes ago. You know what I'm saying? He lost all his endorsements, all of most of his endorsements. Adidas ain't fucking with him. Balenciaga's not fucking with him. Everything, and then he had to come out, I think on IG with like some sort of apology or whatever like that. I don't think it was like a real last apology, but it was an apology nonetheless. So he also, as much shit talking he was doing when he was getting money, he had to like lose his wings like Icarus and kiss the ring. So, you know, it's tough. And now here we are with Kyrie, and we don't even know what he gonna do. You know what I'm saying? Like, you already know, money is not really big to him like that. You understand? Money's not really a big deal to him. I think like his career earnings is upwards of like 230 million, based on some sources. But if your career earnings are up to 230 mil, like, money isn't really a big object to him, especially when you already made a lot of the money that you made. You know, you pretty much robbed Boston of all their money because he played like shit during that time, and they actually got better after he left. So he's coming off with a pretty decent coin, but in coming off with an amount of pretty decent coin, you could also notice a lot of the contributions he's made. That's why when people say, "Oh, Kyrie is anti-Semitic," he's spouting hate speech, I'm like, that's not even true. Number one, I haven't really seen him speak about like anti-Semitism, and on top of that, you know, he gives back to a lot of the communities that support them in a sense. A few, for example, I'm going to pull it up here. I could name right now, like in front of me. I have a few of his contributions over the past year. So this is just, mind you, this is just last year. He donated $323,000 to Feeding America. He partnered with City Harvest to ensure 250,000 meals were distributed to New Yorkers. He also partnered with Nike to donate 17 pallets of food and masks to the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, which, by the way, behind this whole situation, this partnership with Nike is pretty much disintegrated. It's never going to renew. So, you know, so much for that. He also committed $1.5 million to help pay WNBA players who opted out of the 2020 season. So when WNBA players say, "Oh, people got to give up a little bit of money so that way, you know, we could have some support," Kyrie been doing that, so stop it. He also paid off the college tuition of 9 HBCU students from Lincoln University. Shout out to the HBCUs. And finally, he purchased a house for the family of George Floyd, according to former NBA player Stephen Jackson. Listen, this all happened in the last year. So when you tell me, "Oh, he's anti-Semitic, he's trash at this, he's trash at that," when you're able to do all of that, and that's not even like his whole contribution list, it's just to name a few things. When you do all of that, it's really hard to say, "Oh, you know, he's anti-Semitic, he's moving like trash, he's moving mad." You know what I'm saying? And then on top of that, just today, you know, at the time of this recording, and Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, he had to come out and say, "Hey, we had a direct and this actually is recorded. This actually is reported by the New York Times." Adam Silver quotes, he says, and I quote, "We had a direct and candid conversation. He's someone I've known for a decade, and I've never heard an anti-Semitic word from him, or frankly, hate directed at any group." Keep in mind, Adam Silver is Jewish. So if anybody would be offended, if you're talking about Jewish media being offended by the movie, it would be him. Now, he also said, quote, "Whether or not he's anti-Semitic or not, whether or not he's anti-Semitic is not relevant to the damage caused by the posting of hateful content. And that's where I gotta pump the brakes, because what about Black Israelites is hateful? What wars what happened when it came down to them? Now I might be wrong, they might have been, but then where? And I want to challenge the listeners in the comments. Where? If you could find me a war when it came down to Black Israelites, let me know. Drop it in the comments, we talk about it. Because I can name many a war that the Catholic Church has had their hand in. Hell, one, for example, is slavery. You know, back in the days, they had a strong hand, especially in Europe, with the slave trade. You know what I'm saying? So let's be real. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's really, like, if we're really going to point the fingers, we're going to point the fingers, but the people in power are never going to point the fingers to that direction, because they're in power. And when you're in power, you create your own history, which is unfortunate. And I always tell people, until we own our shit, until we own our own shit, that's going to be a major issue. You know what I'm saying? That's going to be a real major issue, because even though we consume a lot of the content that's out there, very few people are out here, you know, owning their own stuff directly. And that's a big issue if you're trying to say what you want and share what you want. So yeah, until you own your own shit, you're going to be hard pressed to find, you know, to keep what you want, because a lot of the businesses that you're partnering with and collaborating with are owned by Jewish people. And if they're seeing shit that they don't like on their end, they don't care about how you feel as a business person or what have you, they will cut you off like a bad ex. And then, you know what I'm saying, then you out on an island by yourself. You see, LeBron had to trade. Like, when this shit first hit, LeBron had to fall back real quick. He said, oh, I don't follow what Kyrie says or anything like that. And mind you, that was his boy. You know what I'm saying? Back in Cleveland when he won that chip, that was his boy. When it came down to LeBron being Mr. Black Lives Matter during the pandemic and during the bubble. But now when you're one of your own is out here, you know, fighting against an entire community, an entire protected group, you know what I'm saying, for his own freedom of speech, he's turning a blind eye. So yeah, that's a bad look. That's an extremely bad look. I just wanted to touch on that real quick, because I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, wait a minute. He didn't speak up on that until like much later. You know? So it's a real big deal when it comes down to that. So I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of LeBron when it came down to that. He could have definitely did better, especially if you consider that your bro. You know what I'm saying? Honestly. So are the Nets' terms excessive in this case? And that's an easy fuck yeah. Let me get started with this shit real quick. So basically, I've seen people get suspended, right? Over less. I've seen people get suspended over fights. I see Ime Udoka got suspended in Boston regarding his consensual situation with the staffer, I believe. I think it was a staffer, was a VP of a position over there at the Celtics. And he got suspended, and he was going to go try for the Brooklyn Nets head coach position, but then ultimately got snubbed because of what went down. I don't even think he's going to be able to coach again. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, that might be the straw that breaks the haters' back right there. So it is what it is. So I've seen people get suspended, but I feel like now it's getting to the point where the hammer's kind of getting thrown down, because we always thought about the NBA as a players' league, right? And you had a lot of people saying that, you know, it's not like the NFL where the owners have like a real stronghold on what goes down. The players have more, you know, leeway on what they do, what they say. There's more freedom there. So to see this, I feel like I think it's definitely going to be a changing of the guard, I suppose. I mean, it still might be a players' league, but there's going to be a lot of eyes watching the NBA behind this. I feel like that's why Adam Silver had to get out in front of it, because at the same time, we see a lot that goes on. You know, people, you know, saying certain things. You know, now when you're offending certain groups, you kind of have to go. You kind of have to go through it with a fine-tooth comb and see who's saying what. But that's why, you know, a lot of these guys are not really speaking out about this. Even KD, he's like, dude, I'm just trying to play basketball. And don't get me wrong, he's literally the saving grace of the Nets right now, because he's been balling out of control since the start of the season. So if there's one bright spot in the Nets, it's probably KD. To be perfectly honest with you. You know what I'm saying? So it's a big deal. But yeah, these terms are definitely excessive. I feel like this is more of a public. It's a public mental lashing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a public lashing. Honestly, I don't want to say it's mental, but it's a public lashing definitely, because now, you know, now he has to go through all of these hoops and ladders to actually play again. You know what I'm saying? And let's be real. You know, you can't do this with everybody. You can't take somebody's, you know, livelihood or whatever, because honestly, let's be real. He's not like, he sells shoes or whatever. He was partnering with Nike until that, you know, dried up behind this. But, you know, basketball was like his main situation. Now you suspend it without pay for at least 5 games. And I'm like, listen, for me personally, if I was in your shoes, I already made enough money for generational wealth. I already made enough money for my kids. You know what I'm saying? For my kids to live comfortably, and for my kids' kids to live comfortably. Bro, I'm retiring. Suck my dick. Like, I'm not apologizing. I only shared the link. I didn't say anything about a link. I only shared something. And then now you want me to jump through hoops and ladders just to play? I barely played last year because y'all were trying to get me to get the jab. You know what I'm saying? He barely played last year behind that shit because he didn't want to get vaccinated. And I understand why. You know what I'm saying? Granted, people who got to go to work, you got to do what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? But for NBA players, they didn't want to. A lot of them didn't support that shit. But they knew they had, you know, in order to play the game that they love, they gotta, you know, they gotta bend that knee and kiss that ring. And Kyrie was like, nah, we ain't doing it. I'll sit out for the season. I don't give a shit. And then New York, it took for New York to actually loosen up their COVID restrictions for them to actually play. And even then, he was just playing home games. You know? So if you think it didn't matter to him then, and that was an even more serious situation than this, because people are dying by the thousands. You know what I'm saying? So I think this is like way excessive for the most part. And then I also feel like this is probably backlash for the fact that he took that stance on quarantine. Well, not on quarantine, but on the jab. So it is excessive. And honestly, if I was him, I'll either A, retire, bye, see ya, suck my dick, or B, I'll come back to the team, but either you trade me or this is my last year playing. Because, you know, if I can't share what I want to share without catching a lot of heat and slack, you know, where does it end? Where does this end? If you want to suspend somebody and give them homework to get back off suspension, where does it end? You know what I'm saying? And then on top of that, a lot of people don't even realize that movie that is so offensive and so outrageous and so demanding, it's still up. It's still on Amazon Prime as we speak. At least like 2 days ago. You know what I'm saying? It was still up on it was still being promoted. All right, as early as Tuesday morning. It's according to the Post. The movie's Hebrews to Negroes Wake Up Black America is available for purchase on Amazon Prime's video service as of early Tuesday morning. Yeah. Amazon was considering adding a disclaimer to the film. Post reached out to Amazon for comments. Amazon ain't taking that shit. Amazon will buy New York Post's whole life. Jeff Bezos will buy New York Post's life and put it right next to the Washington Post. Honestly, because he owns that too. The ADL came out and they said they viewed the film as, quote, virtually anti-Semitic, sent a letter to Amazon urging the Seattle-based tech giant to remove the film and book from its platform. It's according to the New York Times. Quote, quote unquote. ADL also states that, quote, the book and the film are designed to inflame hatred, and now that it is popularized by Mr. Irving, will lead directly to the harm of Jews. These views aren't different viewpoints of history. They are outright anti-Semitic hate. They amplify long-standing anti-Semitic tropes about Jewish power, greed, and claims that Jews control the media. See, when you get exposed, you gotta divert the truth. You know what I'm saying? You gotta divert, and I feel that that's what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? They're like, oh, well, it's not even about debating viewpoints. This is about anti-Semitic hate. But the people that are sharing it aren't even anti-Semitic. But if you share something that a group disagrees with, oh, now it's anti-Semitic. It's like when you have friends, not even friends. It's like when you're doing something, right? And some people say like, oh, they might not agree with it, or they give you critique on how to do it better, or what you could do differently. The next thing you know, you're like, oh, he a hater. Fuck all that. He a hater. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, bro, he's just trying to help. Like, how you gotta be a hater? Like, what are we doing? So, I don't know. I feel like the price of freedom, like, you know, freedom and so like freedom of speech ain't really free. You know what I'm saying? It ain't really free. It comes with a price. You can say what you want. Yeah, sure. Like, this is granted, this is America. But when you're talking about canceling somebody, taking somebody's livelihood at the same time, like you can't expect, right, for people to believe that freedom of speech is still a thing. I don't think it's a thing. I think it has a cost, as you can clearly see. You know what I'm saying? Nick Cannon found out that cause. Kanye West found out that cause. Kyrie Irving found out that cause. Jeff Bezos ain't finding out shit because he's still making money off the movie for his empire. So they're not going to come at him like that. And plus, I believe he's like he's definitely in the top 5 richest people in the world right now, or at least richest people in America. Elon Musk is definitely number 1, but I think after that is Warren. It's the guy who owns Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett, and then maybe Jeff Bezos. It might be some other people. Fire somebody in the Walton family who owns Walmart, but he's up there. You ain't gonna ruffle those type of feathers, so you probably gonna give Jeff Bezos a pass, which means the next person you going down to is Kyrie Irving, which is fucked up because all he did was share a link for people to, you know, listen. Now, what other people do outside of that, they could do outside of that, because after all, isn't that what freedom's all about? Or is that only a fantasy concept? Freedom of speech. And honestly, let's be real. When you look at the words freedom of speech, that was in, I believe, the Constitution. But you also got to consider this. The Constitution was made at a time where Black people was only seen as 3/5 of a person at best. You know what I'm saying? So when you're not perceived as a person at a time when a document of such importance is being prepared, like the Constitution, you know, you tend to you tend to understand that those words weren't meant for you. You know, they were meant for your counterparts that created it. So by the time you had rights and you had standards and everything like that, you had your rights, and you know, you got granted your rights. At that time, a lot of people who made that constitution were dead and buried, and now you're dealing with their descendants. You understand? So I feel like when it comes down to this, freedom isn't free. You do gotta pay a hefty fucking fee if you want to speak on these type of issues. I'm not gonna, like, here's my thing. I understand where Kyrie's coming from here. You know what I'm saying? Because he's not Semitic. He's seen something that he agreed with, and I say he agreed with because he shared it. If you didn't agree with it, you wouldn't share it, right? But he agreed with it, and then he shared it. He didn't speak on it. He didn't speak on the Jewish community in a bad light. He just simply shared a link, and this is what happens. But this is what I also tell our people: we gotta start owning shit. We really need to start getting information and start owning shit. Ain't no way we're the biggest spending block in the world, and yet we own little to nothing. There's no way. You know what I'm saying? I talked about in the last episode about the hip hop community coming together to prevent situations like what happened with Takeoff. But I think, and I've seen this in some cases, but it needs to be at a stronger space in order for us to get the results that we really want. We really need like the richest black people to come together and put something together. You know what I'm saying? Because even though you're getting money through those avenues that are owned by, you know, those the Jewish groups, even though you're getting money from them, you can still use that money for your community to put together something that our community actually owns outright. Our people built Black Wall Street before it was burnt down. You know what I'm saying? Before it was burnt down and destroyed. Our people owned Rosewood. You understand? We did that. But in order to get back to that time, this is probably gonna be the theme of this season. We definitely need more unity. We're not gonna get nowhere without that. So it's something that people really gotta understand and really gotta move forward on before, you know, we not lose anybody, before the next person comes along and gets canceled over some bullshit. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, this whole situation, straight up bullshit. Kyrie Irving needs to play, and if he wants to leave the Nets, I don't blame him. And keep in mind, I'm a stone cold fan of the Brooklyn Nets since they were in Jersey with Vince Carter, Kenyon Martin, Richard Jefferson, Kerry Kittles, those boys. You feel me? And I'm still saying Kyrie should leave the Nets and then go to LA. But with the way this is going, Mans might not even play again. And in this case, I completely understand. That's going to do it for us today here at King Talk. You already know what it is. Each and every Friday, we out here. Follow my social medias on the bottom. You already know me. We at Instagram with Aaron Sands Premier. Link in the description. Twitter, I may or may not be on that for so long, but in the meantime, follow me there and follow me on Good Pods at King Talk Sands. You already know what the vibes is. We back here next week. I might just do being the fact that this was so unanimously brought with the whole listener's choice thing, I might bring that back next week. Check out my IG stories for another poll. I'm gonna drop a poll on Sunday. I'm gonna drop a poll for the next episode, and I'm gonna let you decide. What do you want to hear? What do you want to hear on this podcast? You know what I'm saying? What topics you want to talk? What you want to hear me talk about? I will talk about it vote on the topics. I'm gonna put the top 4 topics. Also gonna throw a story time with Aaron Sands on there. You know, let's see what y'all want to hear. I will be able to talk about it. I got no problem getting controversial with that. So until Friday, next Friday, that is, you already know what it is. It's your man's Aaron Sands, and if it's Fridays, it's King Talk. Thanks for stopping by. See you next week. Hey, what up? It's your boy Aaron Sands, and I know you're enjoying this episode of King Talk right now, but I want to dive in a little bit and talk about the Premier Boys podcast. You got me, Aaron Sands, Ken the Gentleman, the homie Roddy Rod, and long live the Chief Mally Mal, all in the building, talking about the hottest entertainment topics, the hottest news topics, and giving our own take on what's going on out here in these streets. It can get raunchy. It could get crazy. You might even be talking about somebody's mama. Who knows? But every Wednesday at midnight, check us out on Apple, Good Pods. Don't forget to drop that 5-star rating and all wherever else you hear your podcast. Now back to the show, man. Also, before we roll out officially, I want to give a special shout out to all the veterans. Right now, with all of the controversy going on with the whole Kyrie Irving situation, I completely forgot about Veterans Day. I want to give a special shout out to all the veterans. Thank you for your service. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing today. So yeah, shout out to the troops or whatever.
What's up, everybody? This is your boy Ken, aka Mr. Gentleman, your host of Mr. Gentleman Lifestyle Podcast and 1/4 of the Premier Boy Podcast. And you are now listening to my brother, Aaron, King Talk Sands Show, King Talk with Aaron Sands. Yeah!